Well, let's go ahead. We have the 7 board members. Bob can pop on.
Okay. All right. Since 6:30 this evening, the board has been in closed session to consider the following. Discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 2.06. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. And litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal. I will entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
Wanke, so moved.
Joe, second.
Okay, a motion and a second are heard. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are in open session. Good evening and welcome to the May 19th board meeting. Our mission is to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Board members present this evening: Kristen Fitzgerald, Donna Wanke, Charles Cush, Paul Leong, Joe Kosminski, Christine Gerke, and Janet Yang-Rohr.
Okay, please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are now at good news.
Good news. Congratulations to the seniors from Naperville North High School and Naperville Central High School. We yesterday celebrated senior celebration and commemorative virtually. We're proud of each one of you. We know that you go on to do amazing things. We are so sorry we haven't been able to celebrate in person. We look forward to the day that we are able to do that. We are still holding hope and holding a date in July for either another virtual ceremony or, with all fingers crossed, the hopes of an in-person ceremony. But seniors, again, congratulations. We wish you well. Next step of your journey.
Okay, congratulations, graduates. All right, we are now reaching public comment, item 5.01. The Board of Education welcomes comments from the public at its meetings. Comments by individuals should be limited to 3 minutes. If the person is representing multiple individuals or a group, such person may be allowed to speak for 5 minutes. Issues raised during public comment will be taken under advisement by the Board of Education, but will not be discussed this evening. Issues raised during public participation may be added to future agendas or addressed by administrative staff. The superintendent is the board's designee to coordinate response to public comments and will apprise the board accordingly. And I do understand that we do have a public comment that has been submitted.
That's correct. We did receive an email from a community member on the public comment email account, particularly focused on questions regarding remote learning. That document has been posted in board docs. And again, it's not so much comment as it is a number of questions. And so we'll respond to those and post those as we have previously.
Okay, and were there any other public comments? No, okay. All right, then we will go on to our monthly reports. Listed in board docs are our monthly reports: treasury, investments, insurance, and budget. Does any member of the Board of Education have any questions about any of the monthly reports? Okay, no. So we will go on to action by consent. I believe, Joe, you're planning to make the motion for the action by consent because you had bills and claims.
Yes. So first I want to thank Susan for getting all the documentation to me, and Tracy LaFlamme for making it really easy to go through this over email. So I move approval of warrant number 1024955 through warrant number 1025164, totaling $10,895,236.31 for the period of May 5th, 2020 to May 19th, 2020, as well as items 7.02 through 7.09.
Second, Gerke.
Okay, a motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Kosminski,
Aye.
Leong,
Aye.
Wanke,
Aye.
Gerke,
Yes.
Yangrohr,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Kush.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. So we will go on to communications on our agenda, and we have item 8.01 student ambassador reports, but we do not have any student ambassadors present this evening. So I understand we're going to be inviting them to come in June so that we can say goodbye and have their final reports. And so we'll look forward to that. So we will move on to item 8.02, written communications. Listed in board docs are our Freedom of Information Act requests for your perusal. Then we'll go to item 8.03, superintendent staff school report.
Just very briefly, we'll mention that Thursday, May 21st is the last day of instruction for the 2019-2020 school year. Want to thank our students and our families for your commitment to our remote learning and then these unprecedented times, and how you've really risen to the challenge and done everything needed to continue your learning as we can prepare to move forward for the next school year. May 22nd, Friday, is a remote learning planning day that our staff will use to kind of tie up this school year and begin to make preparations for the next school year.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to item 8.04, President's Report. I do not have a report this evening. So we'll move on to item 8.05, Board of Education reports. I see a couple of hands. First, Paul.
Hi, I have a Board of Ed report. This week I attended the DuPage Executive Committee virtual meeting. The bulk of the discussion was when would our next meetings be and what would the topics be. A number of other districts volunteered their locations for the next meeting. I was hesitant to do so because we hosted as recently as a year ago. So if Superintendent Bridges is interested in hosting, feel free to reach out to me. And if the rest of the board is interested in doing the same, again, feel free to reach out to me. We pushed the dates out for the fall meeting as far forward as possible to see if we could get some relief from the current COVID-19 crisis so that we might actually host the meeting in person. So we pushed that out as far as possible. The spring meeting, again, fairly consistent with the date from last year, because we're hoping again for normal attendance and so forth in 2021. That's about it. So if we're interested in hosting again, please contact me and I can always volunteer our facilities. Thank you.
Thank you for representing our board on the Illinois Association of School Boards DuPage Executive Committee. Okay, I know we have a couple of other board reports. Joe?
Joe, you're on mute.
Yep, I have to unmute.
There you go.
Sorry. We have resolutions coming up pretty soon in June, and I wanted to suggest that we put one together. We learned that election days are not eligible for remote learning or e-learning when we were making the schedule, and we had to go through several iterations of that. So it might be beneficial to add things like election days or any sort of mandate where the public would be gathering at the school during the school day to also be eligible for remote learning or e-learning in addition to emergency snow days.
So you're thinking for the board to write a resolution for consideration through the resolutions committee at ISB that would allow for remote learning for elections and other mandated use like vaccine giving or whatever.
Sorts of
Public health, okay.
Drives or things, yeah.
So this topic came up at the LEND meeting on Friday, and there was a lot of support for continuing to advocate for that, because I think it had come up in the past and there had been that hadn't gone through the legislature yet. So I think definitely with the new capabilities for remote learning that we have exhibited, it seems like a great time to go back to the legislature about that. What other thoughts do we have from the board about whether or not we'd want to draft that as a board and see if we could get that passed by the resolutions committee and by the full ISB? Is the board supportive of doing going
Charles,
forward?
I'm in support of that. I support that.
Okay,
But just
Dan?
simply say from the administrative standpoint, having additional flexibility in terms of how we navigate our calendar would be something that we would be open to.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. So then, Joe, if you're volunteering, which it sounds like you are,
Yeah.
I think it would be great if you wanted to put together a resolution, like a draft resolution that we could put on the agenda, right?
Sure.
Wouldn't we want to put that on the agenda and then just consider it and then submit it?
Yeah,
Dan?
yeah, I'll work on that.
Do we put it on the agenda then? I don't know
Yeah,
if
it
we,
usually comes, the draft usually comes back for the board to agree on the resolution. Yep, correct.
right,
And then-
okay. So we'll just put it, whenever you're ready, we'll put it on the agenda, and then we'd want to get that done before that June, I think it's June 24th or June 26th, that
Right.
is the deadline. And then they consider it in August, and it comes back to us with a, hopefully, a recommendation to adopt. And then we would see it at the delegate assembly.
Right.
So thanks for volunteering for that, Joe. I think that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I know I saw other hands. Charles, did you have a board report? And I see Janet too.
So mine's not a report, and actually, I apologize. I was trying to raise my hand while Dan was going through. He mentioned how you guys are going to get together and kind of talk about learning's implications from the remote learning. I'd be interested in just, and I don't know if you're already planning on doing this, to kind of hear what you guys have learned, so lessons learned along the way with the remote learning. I know that the entire district kind of got thrust into this, and so the staff did a wonderful job of, kind of shifting on the fly to make it kind of work. But I'd be really interested in understanding any long-term implications that you see for what we've learned during this time and our capabilities, and where we may want to bolster those, or where we may want to utilize them in other ways for other issues that we're trying to solve for in terms of capacity or.
Yeah, we'll be happy to put. We'd be happy to put a report together for the board and share. We have learned some great lessons. Again, as you said, our team of instructors, learning services team, student services, everybody really work with our principals and instructional leaders. Really turned on a dime a couple of times and really brought forward some plans with we thought maximize the guidance and the limitations that we had put in place for us. But that being said, we know how we can do it better now. We have learned some lessons. We've made some tweaks along the way, and we'll continue to do that. As part of our kind of return to learn and return to work plans, we will be setting up some kind of we don't know how yet. Dr. Knowlton will take the lead on looking at this in terms of really just the overall assessment of what impact this is going to have for us, as well as our compliance with overall regulations that are being set on us by the state. So, this may be reports over time. Certainly, in terms of as we think about what the 2020-2021 school year might look like, we're anticipating the need to have a remote plan in place for some point potentially. We don't know, but some of what we hear is potential spikes in the future, and so we'll need to be prepared for that. But we know based on the lessons we've learned, we should be able to kind of share what went well in areas we think we can make it better. But we'll do that over time for sure.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing just to add on, so thank you for that. One other thing to add on would be maybe an opportunity to solicit some additional feedback from the community in terms of the impact and some things that we may or may not have realized that may have been helpful to support the community in that. I mean, I know that, we turned all of our parents into teachers. Not that my philosophy isn't that parents should already be teachers to some degree, but that's a whole nother story. But what other supports that the community may need to facilitate keeping that the learning level as high a caliber as it can be. Yeah, and I just know that there are probably some gaps that we're not even able to see just from our vantage point. So I don't know if there are plans already to do that, but I'd be curious to understand how that's going to roll out.
And I think as well, just to share from the LEND Executive Committee or the LEND Committee meeting that was Friday, I just was appreciative of Dan's advocacy for some of the challenges that we've encountered because there are conversations ongoing with ISBE in terms of the guidelines for the fall. And so it's helpful when we've encountered challenges to share those and to advocate for solutions. And there were several instances, Dan, where you spoke up talking about, conflicting guidance from the health department and conflicting actions from IHSA, et cetera, that are things that we've navigated, but that as we move forward are helpful to have sort of all in one coordinated effort. So I'm very appreciative of, as you learn those lessons and as we continue to discover from our families, et cetera, that we advocate for those to be considered as we move forward. Okay, I think we have one more board report. Janet?
Yes, I wanted to let the board know about a few things that are going on with the Naperville Education Foundation, where Charles and I serve as the school board representatives on that board of trustees. Just some impressive numbers that I think everyone would like to hear about. First, the NEF awarded about 24 scholarships pretty recently, totaling about $80,000. And that money comes from a wide variety of sources, but some of them were, for example, from the virtual high five that occurred during Teacher Appreciation Week pretty recently, and there's still actually money coming in from that. That raised over $14,000, and I think in a sign of just how much our community cares and how much they want to contribute and make a difference, right? Especially during COVID-19. Dislocations, the Kid Booster Crisis Fund, which is reserved for those affected by COVID-19, has raised over $175,000 now, and so that money comes from the community, from individuals, from like foundations, and it came from also our high school baseball teams doing fundraising. So that was, that there's just a lot of people coming together to make a difference there, and it really, I think, nicely supplements a lot of what we're doing as a school district. So where we're providing lunches, for example, that works so well with NEF providing dinners, and kind of just filling those gaps. And so for the board and for the cabinet, if you want to help, one way that you can do so is by signing up for Team NEF, which occurs in October. And if you can commit to running, to volunteering, to whatever, I'm sure NEF would love to have you. The registration closes at the end of this month, and so if you want to sign up, please do so. It's traditionally the most important fundraising event for NEF, and they're of course making accommodations and plans just in case we won't be able to do a big mass run. We'll have like a virtual run, for example, as an option. So lots of good choices, and I encourage everyone to sign up if you can.
If I can just add on and piggyback onto that report, I want to share some good news along with the Kid Booster Crisis Fund. Wendy Gutch, the executive director of the Naperville Education Foundation, shared a communication with me today. So I'd like to read that. Dear Wendy, the John P. Calamos Foundation, in conjunction with Citygate Hospitality, is pleased to support the good work of the Naperville Education Foundation. We know your resources are needed now more than ever, and we thank you for your commitment to our community. In close, please find a check in the amount of $25,000 to support the work you are doing for students and families impacted by COVID. So huge thanks to the Calamos Foundation.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's very exciting, and it's tremendous to see the support from our whole community for NEF and for the Kid Booster Crisis Fund and for all the things that NEF does. And so thank you for that reminder, Janet, about Team NEF. I've done it in the past, and hopefully again this year, even if it is virtual. But I am hopeful that we'll have lots of support, because I know NEF did not have the opportunity for their other fundraiser because of the fact that we went into that shelter in place right before it. So thank you for representing us on the NEF committee, as well as Charles, and thanks for sharing the update with us.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, there's the running, but as Janet mentioned, volunteers are always needed as well. And one year, Gene and I volunteered, and it was a blast. So if you're not a runner, don't worry about having to be a runner. They're always looking for folks to volunteer as well, to participate in that. It takes a lot of people to make a successful event. So don't shy away from the fact that you may not be athletically inclined or want to make a commitment to run, but they're always looking for volunteers as well.
And I know many of our board members and our administrators have been both runners and volunteers. So thank you for that. Okay, no further reports. Oh, Paul? You're on mute.
I'm working that. I was wondering if we could have either Superintendent Bridges or one of his staff reach out to high school students and parents of high school students to talk about, in as much as the week is running short here and the school year is running short, to encourage people to clear incomplete so that it doesn't affect graduations.
We will speak with our principals about that. We have plans in place. So you definitely have the communication going through our principals. Thank you for that.
Okay. So I don't see any more hands for board reports. So we will move on to discussion without action. And we have no discussion without action. So we will move to discussion with action. And we have several items for discussion with action. So we will begin with item 10.01, establishing hourly rates of pay.
May 4th Board of Education meeting, our Chief Human Resources Officer, Bob Ross, presented recommendations to the Board of Education for some updates and changes to some of our employee groups. Bob, do you have any additional information to share with the board?
No, thank you.
Be happy to answer any questions. If there are no questions, we recommend you approve the changes and increases to the hourly rates for 2020-2021 as presented on May 4th.
Kush, I move approval of item 10.01, establish hourly rates of pay as presented.
Leong,
Yeah.
second.
Okay, and there were no questions, correct? No one had questions? Okay, great. So a motion and second are heard. And so please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Leong,
Aye.
Kosminski,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Gerke,
yes,
Yangrohr,
Aye.
Wanke.
aye,
Okay, the motion passes. So we will move on to item 10.02, second reading, policy 4.15, identity protection.
In response to an Illinois State Board of Education routine audit that was conducted, we needed to update our policy on identity protection. The May 4th Board of Education meeting, our Chief Financial Officer, Mike Francis, presented our recommendation to the board for your consideration. We've had no new questions. If there's any questions tonight, we'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, we recommend you approve Board Policy 415, Identity Protection, as presented.
Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
okay, Wanke moves to approve item 10.02, the second reading of policy 4.15, identity protection.
Second, Gerke,
Okay, a motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Yangrohr,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wanke,
Aye,
Kosminski,
Aye.
Leong,
Aye.
Gerke.
yes,
Okay, the motion passes. So we'll move on to item 10.03, second reading, policy 4.80, accounting and audits.
Also, through routine audit of some of our federal grants a couple of months ago, Illinois State Board of Education recommended that we update our policy 480 on accounting and audits. Mike Francis also presented that policy to the board on May 4th. We've had no new questions on this policy. We recommend you approve it as presented.
Okay, are there questions? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve item 10.03, policy 480, accounting and audits as presented. Yangrohr.
second, Gerke,
Okay, a motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Gerke,
yes,
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Kosminski,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Yangrohr,
Aye.
Wanke,
aye,
Leong.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. So we will move on to item 10.04, second reading, policy 7.180, preventing bullying, intimidation, and harassment.
Okay, 10.04, 5, and 6 will all be voted on separately, but all come as a result of student parent-teacher advisory committee reviews that are conducted annually on each of these policies. Assistant Superintendent Nancy Voice works with deans of students and athletic directors and deans of student activities, each of the high schools, to review these policies with the community members and students and make recommendations to the Board of Education. We've, since the last board meeting, we've had an update. I'll turn it over to Nancy to kind of describe the language change, and then I'll ask you to vote on them separately, but I'd recommend that you approve them as presented. Nancy?
Thank you. Yes, all the policies read the same with the one exception, which carries forward to all three policies, and that is the harassment policy was changed to reflect that specifically the racial slurs, ethnic. We also add religious and other racial slurs, so that we encompassed everything in there per our discussion last time. So that reflects in all three policies.
And I would just add that based on the input from Board of Education members last time, Nancy saw input from Dr. Rakita Leaks, our Executive Director of Diversity and Inclusion, legal counsel, and members of the high school staff. So they're all in agreement that this is the appropriate language.
Thank you for seeking that feedback. I think this is a lot more clear for our students. The only thing that I would recommend is just that we really make an effort to notify our students about the change and our parents, simply because we've already done our online registration and we all had to check off on the discipline policy and it hadn't been updated. So just, not that people would look at every single word anyways. I think it's important that we highlight, our really clear expectation for student behavior.
Absolutely, I will make sure that's done. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the bullying policy? Okay, I don't see any additional questions or comments. Thank you all to the staff and to the committee for working so hard to update this policy. I will entertain a motion.
Kush, I move approval of item number 10.04, 7.1.8 as presented.
Second, Kuzminski.
Okay. So the item 7.180 is motion and second are heard. And would you please call the roll, Mrs. Patton?
Kush,
Aye.
Leong,
Aye.
Yangroor,
Aye.
Kuzminski,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wanke,
Aye.
Gerke.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. So we'll move on to item 10.05, second reading, policy 7.190, student behavior.
I have no additional comments from the earlier comments. If there's any questions from the board, we'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I recommend you approve 7190 as presented.
Okay, are there questions from the board? Okay, I see no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve item 10.05, policy 7.190, student behavior. Gerke.
Second, Kuzminski.
Okay, a motion and second are heard. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Leong,
Aye.
Yangroor,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Gerke,
Yes.
Wanke,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Kuzminski.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. So we will move on to item 10.06, second reading, policy 7.240 and 240 OR, high school co-curricular participation code.
Okay, again, at the same last meeting, May 4th, Mrs. Voice presented recommendations based on the committee's input to the Board of Education. We have no new changes. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I recommend you approve item 10.06 as presented.
Any questions? And sorry, I recognize I said that incorrectly. It was 7.240R. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve item 10.06, policies 7240 and 7240R as presented.
Second, Gerke.
A motion and second are heard. Please call the roll, Ms. Patton.
Kush,
Aye.
Leong,
Aye.
Yangroor,
Aye.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wanke,
Aye.
Kuzminski,
Aye.
Gerke.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. So we will move on to item 10.07, NUEA agreement.
So as you're aware, the current collective bargaining agreement between the Naperville Unit Education Association and the Naperville Community Unit School District 203 Board of Education set to expire at the end of this year. Prior to the COVID crisis, the Board of Education and the association had been negotiating in consideration of a multi-year contract. But as these are unprecedented times and a time of great uncertainty, both sides reached a tentative agreement on a one-year contract. that provides us the time needed to see how the educational landscape is going to change based on the COVID pandemic. I think it's a fair contract that essentially rolls over for the 2020-2021 school year. It includes a base salary increase of 67% of the consumer price index, or 1.27%. The average returning teacher salary increase would then equal about 3.29%. Again, I think this provides us the time to really understand the overall impact of the COVID pandemic and what it's going to mean for us long term. And I appreciate the leadership of the NUEA in terms of thinking about how we can collaborate to make sure that as we think long term for our school district, we are in the best position possible moving forward. I do want to take an opportunity to thank the members of NUA and our educators that have really stepped forward during this time of crisis. During our remote learning, and to really make sure that our students feel that as close to possible, it's a normal school day. And I appreciate the parents who have been supportive of the work that's been going on at home. So conditional upon the Board of Education's vote this evening, tentative agreement, the memorandum of understanding outlining the tentative agreement will be made public. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, are there questions from the board? Okay, I would just say that the board is so proud of the high quality education that District 203 has been able to provide during this time of remote learning, and the way that our teachers and our administrators were able to quickly work together to navigate the challenges before them. This collaborative relationship benefits our students so much and our community, and this new agreement will enable us to continue to provide this outstanding education in a fiscally responsible way as we navigate through this uncertain time together. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve, Wanke. I move to approve item 10.07, the NUEA agreement as presented.
Second, Gerke.
A motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Mrs. Patton.
Leong,
Aye.
Kosminski,
Aye.
Wanke,
Aye.
Kush,
Aye.
Gerke,
Yes.
Yangroor,
Aye.
Fitzgerald.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. And I think, as Dan said, we are certainly appreciative of those from NUEA who are typically in our audience. And I feel certain that you are in our audience, even though we can't see you because we're on Zoom, but we appreciate your leadership and collaboration. Okay, so we will go on to item 11, old business. We have no old business. Item 12, new business. Item 13, upcoming events.
Yeah, so again, as I had previously mentioned, technically school ends on May 22nd now, but that May 22nd day will be a day of remote learning planning. The last day of instruction will be Thursday, May 21st. Then the next Board of Education meeting is scheduled for June 1, 2020. We currently list PSAC as the location. Currently, the governor indicates that we are on track to move to phase 3 in each of the regions across the state. However, that still would require some limitations. And so depending on kind of some guidance and direction we get, we may either be in the current format remote that we are now, or some hybrid of it where based on guidance that we're provided, which I think would limit in person to 10. So we will wait for guidance, and then either we will be meeting, whether we're meeting via Zoom, live stream, or we're meeting partially in person, we will plan for that. And then Mrs. Patton has begun to load the board calendar for next year.
Okay, and do we have any indication when we'll get that guidance so that we know, and so that our community will know how that will?
No. As similar to my LEND comments last Friday, the sooner would be better so that we could begin planning for that.
Yes. Okay, so that's all of our upcoming events. We'll look forward to our next board meetings, regardless of whether or not they are virtually or in person. And so we are to item 14, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Kush.
A motion and a second are heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.